All right, so here we are live with another action figure unboxing, and this is Green Lantern from Mcfarlane's DC Superpowers collection. There we can see on the back is the DC Direct logo with the Mcfarlane logo right underneath it. I can't believe I never noticed that this was a DC Direct product before. That's interesting. So, yeah, DC Direct used to be the toy company that was owned by DC Comics themselves. They started out making like statues and life-size props and things like that, and eventually started making their own action figures. And I seem to remember that one of the first action figures that I bought from DC Direct was Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. They had a wave of hard traveling heroes with Green Lantern, Black Canary, and Green Arrow. And of course, the original Superpowers figure that I bought, the very first Superpowers that I bought back in the 80s, was Green Lantern. They had two of them at the store. I think it was Sears that we went to where I first saw Superpowers in the store, and begged my grandmother to buy me a Superpowers figure. She would only buy me one, and they only had two that were there at the time. They had the Flash and they had Green Lantern, so I picked Green Lantern. And here we go, finally, with Green Lantern in the Superpowers line. Now, of course, they did put out a Green Lantern figure previously, but it was not Hal Jordan, not the Silver Age Green Lantern. No, it was this guy here. I happen to have one of the ones I bought for cheap at Walmart recently, since they've got these marked down to $6 right now. Got myself another John Stewart figure. This is going to be some kind of custom. You can see the bubbles all kinds of cracked there. So this was the first one they put out in the Mcfarlane Superpowers line, and I was glad of it because John Stewart was a character that I wanted in the original Superpowers line that they never got around to making. So then they made John Stewart first, and just finally got around to making Hal Jordan. Now, of course, that wasn't too big a deal for me because I have the original Superpowers Hal Jordan. This is not the one that I've had since I was a kid, unfortunately. That one got worn out or lost or broken or something. He's lost to the depths of time now, but this is one that I recently reacquired. So, and I do think that Hal Jordan was one of the best Superpowers figures of the original line. So we're going to see how the new one compares to the old one. And of course, I have the John Stewart that I already opened here, and Sinestro. So we can have a look and see how all those figures look next to each other. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and move on to the figure. So we've got this artwork here by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. This would have come out of the original style guide. Pretty cool. I really like it. I think that this was the same image that was on the original card, but I don't remember for certain. We do have the vintage 1980s Green Lantern, actually like 1970s Green Lantern logo on there. So that's pretty sweet. Superpowers logo, got the cross-sell artwork of all the figures. A whole big list of characters that they have now. It's funny because you look back at that original wave, and we had 4 figures on there. I want to say like there was even like the earliest cards didn't even have John Stewart on there and just had Superman, Batman, and Darkseid. So it's cool to see how the line has grown in this amount of time. Then we got the Batmobile, the Invisible Jet, and the somewhat disappointing Whirly Bat. And then got the bio of Green Lantern on here, which I'll go ahead and read. Hal Jordan was summoned to the crashed wreckage of a spaceship belonging to Abin Sur, a member of the Green Lantern Corps. Upon his death, Abin trusted his ring and duties as the Green Lantern to Hal Jordan. So that's kind of a lame bio, I think. It doesn't really go into his powers or his enemies or his weaknesses or anything like that. Like that's just like the very beginning of his origin. That's like if I wrote a bio on Superman and it said, on the planet Krypton, one of their leading scientists, Jor-El, sensing the approach of doom, placed his infant son in a rocket ship and sent it hurtling in the direction of the Earth. just as Krypton exploded. And that's it. That's the whole origin. That's all you get for the bio. It's like, well, what happened after that? Like, you know, what are Green Lantern's powers? What are his weaknesses? Who are his enemies? Like, I want to know the whole story. And I know you want to have like different languages on here, but you know, even still, if you just want to do a single paragraph, like bequeathed his ring by a dying alien, Hal Jordan became Green Lantern. His powers include, summoning the hard light image of anything that's, created by his own will. Like, go into stuff like that, So, and honestly, I kind of feel like what they should do is just switch out the black plate for each one of these, and then every language, French, English, Spanish, they could all get their own bio on there, and that would be really cool. So I'm sure, like, the French and the Spanish people reading these bios think they're kind of lame too. It's like, anyway, let's go ahead and open it up. Now I already started to kind of peel loose from the card there. So it seems like this is more powerful glue than what I'm used to having on the Superpowers figures these days. It seems like anytime I open a Superpowers, it's either the glue is so powerful that it just wants to rip the entire front of the card off, case in point, or like with Batman, look at, I ruined that beautiful piece of artwork. So sad. Or like with Batman, the cards just don't want to stay on. So it's like happy medium, Mcfarlane, one or the other. Some of us do like to keep these cards after we've opened the figures. I'm just saying. So there we go. Take them out of the package. And Green Lantern does come with one accessory, which is a Green Lantern. If like I say, if you want your Green Lantern figure to have any one accessory, you want them to have the power battery. And if we compare with the power battery that comes with John Stewart, we see that it is an entirely different mold. And I think this one is more accurate to the comic book version that came with John Stewart. This one that comes with Hal Jordan, I believe, is more accurate to what came with the original Superpowers figure. I don't know if it's a 1-1 match, but it looks a lot more like that original Superpowers battery. I can't talk. That original Superpowers power battery to me. A little more simplified, a little more chunky. And then we have Hal Jordan himself, so let's go ahead and get him out of the package. And he's embedded pretty deeply in this plastic tray. No rubber bands or rubber tabs holding this guy in, and he didn't need them, because trust me, he was in there firmly. So I had to yank him out. He's all in this weird pose now that I got him yanked out. So let's look at him side by side next to the original Superpowers Green Lantern. And the first thing that I notice is that the original one is a much more bright, vibrant shade of green. They're both fairly dark greens, but this one, the color pops a little bit more. This one's a little more subdued. Oddly enough, if we compare Hal Jordan from the Superpowers line to the new John Stewart, we can see that their green matches up almost exactly. So John looks more like the Hal Jordan that's in the older line than the Hal Jordan that's actually in the line with John Stewart now. Now, looking at some of the pictures online, Hal did seem like he stood a little short to me, so I kind of worried that he might be shorter than the original figure. That is not the case. As you can see, they are both the same exact height pretty much, although he is still pretty short for more modern Superpowers, and you can see that John Stewart stands maybe about 1/8 of an inch taller than Hal. Not too bad, but still like noticeably shorter, I think. And then comparing to Sinestro again is like probably about like maybe 1/4 of an inch taller than Hal, but canonically he's supposed to be taller than Hal. Anyway, now just for fun, let's compare to another character, the Flash. So if we put the Flash side by side, we see that the Flash and Green Lantern are about the same height. Flash is just slightly taller. But if we compare him to the vintage Flash from the original Superpowers line, we can see that Flash stands a little shorter. For whatever reason, Flash is much taller in the Mcfarlane line than he is in the Kenner line. And I think this is accurate because I want to say, according to the Who's Who in the DC universe, the Flash, Barry Allen, is supposed to stand 5'10". So he should be on the shorter side of the superheroes. Like not maybe not quite as short as Robin, but still, not quite as tall as, Batman is 6'2", Superman is 6'4". But the Mcfarlane Flash, you can see, is significantly taller than the Kenner Flash. So, much like with Batman, Green Lantern is much more closely based on his Kenner counterpart than Superman is. Although I can see some differences looking at it. One of the things that impressed me about the original Green Lantern is even the way they did his anatomy was very close to how Gil Kane drew like abdominal muscles and stuff like that. So it was like they were paying attention to differences in how artists would tackle the different superheroes, which I thought was interesting. That's what it seemed like to me. And Mcfarlane did kind of try to ape the style of the Superpowers, the Kenner, Hal Jordan, but I don't think they got it quite exactly. Like you can see that first set of abs on the Mcfarlane version are a little elongated compared to the Kenner version. And the Kenner version, the abdominals are a bit more rounded and subtle in their sculpting, whereas with the Mcfarlane version, they're a little more angular and oblong and not quite as supple as on the as on the Kenner version. So I would have to give the edge to the Kenner version as far as that goes. I think they did a better job sculpting the body of the figure than Mcfarlane did, but Mcfarlane's is still pretty good. So the head sculpt is like with Batman, like with the Bronze Age Batman they did. You can see the head sculpt is similar, but it's not quite identical. And unlike with Superman, where they made his hair a bit longer than the original figure, I think with Green Lantern, they made his hair a bit shorter. So, it is a very similar hairstyle to what the original figure had, but just a little bit shorter on the sides. You can see how, like, it poofs out a little bit more on the sides on the Kenner figure, and it's like a little more flat and close to the skull on the Mcfarlane one. Although it does look like his hair is maybe a little bit longer in the back. So not quite a mullet, but still. So let's go over his articulation. Of course, Green Lantern's head rotates all the way around. It's just a simple cut joint, just rotates all the way around like that. Arms rotate all the way around. Again, simple cut joint, just one joint for the arms, no joints for the elbows, no joints for the wrists. This is an old school action figure. It's got old school style articulation. And back in the 80s, that was as much articulation as we could ask for, as 5 points of articulation. But the Superpowers action figures did add the knee articulation, which was unusual for an action figure at the time. So that was nice back in the 80s. Other than G.I. Joe, which of course was probably the best articulated action figure we could find in the 1980s, Superpowers were probably some of the better articulated action figures, I think. And that's good because like it allows you to get him into more of like a flying kind of pose. So like with Superman, you can definitely get Superman into that Kurt Swan kind of flying pose, and that's what you want with a Superman figure. Likewise with Green Lantern, you can get him into some interesting, like this is more, I think, the Gil Kane sort of flying pose with both the arms and the legs extended. This is generally how Green Lantern would look when he'd be flying through a Gil Kane comic book. So, and then we can I haven't put the lantern in his hand yet, and it looks like this gripping hand is pretty tight, and the handle on the lantern is pretty thick. So you can fit the lantern in there, but it does kind of stretch out the hand a little bit. And you might think you might want to have the opening facing towards the front, but he's charging his lantern, so it's got to be facing towards him. But if you want it posed on your shelf, having it faced outward would probably look a little nicer. So we'll go ahead and do it like that. It's not like with the Jon Stewart one where there's an opening on either side. So really it could work either way. There's only one opening on the Hal Jordan lantern. So whichever way you want to have it facing, that's the way you got to have it facing. You got to pay attention to that. So, and likewise, Sinestro's lantern had 2 openings on it as well. So, like I said, sculpting's pretty good, but not quite as good as the original Superpowers Green Lantern. The colors are good, but I don't think they're quite as good as the original Superpowers Green Lantern. Like, here's the thing, is this was always going to be a tough nut to crack for Mcfarlane. Either they could just recreate the original Green Lantern exactly, which then what's the point? I could just get the original Green Lantern. Or you could try to do something new, and then fans would complain it doesn't look as much like the original Green Lantern. As it is, like, you can see how like they tried to follow it fairly closely, but took some of their own liberties. I think some of these were actually stylistic choices that they made, and some of these were just kind of things where it just kind of worked out that way. You know, I look at Batman, and from the neck down, to me, that Batman figure, like the emblem, I think is a little different, but mostly that Batman figure from the neck down is about 99% what the original Kenner Superpowers look like from the neck down. Only really the head was different. This one looks like they tried to copy the body, but just kind of barely missed the mark. It looks good, but I don't think it looks as good as the original figure. The head sculpt, I believe, was probably done to look intentionally different, you know, as a stylistic choice. Like, they didn't want to just straight up copy the original figure. But I suspect from the neck down, they probably intended to be closer than what it wound up being. I'm not sure why they decided to go with the less vibrant shade of green, especially because, as I pointed out before, Jon Stewart has the same shade of green as the Kenner figure, and you would think you would want the green to be consistent across the line, and that if they were going to do the less vibrant green for their Green Lantern figures, they would have started with Jon. But instead, Hal just looks like he's wearing kind of almost like he's wearing a faded Green Lantern uniform. I don't know. Maybe the best choice for Mcfarlane to do, and I'm just armchair quarterbacking this thing, but maybe it might have been a good idea to do what one of their recent Hal Jordan figures, their most recent Hal Jordan figure did, which is go back to the early Silver Age and have where the black just kind of came flat over the shoulders like that, instead of having the scallops and the hourglass shape to the green portion of the costume. Maybe that might have been the best way to go. I don't know. It does seem like that with the original figure that this hourglass shape is kind of subtly sculpted into the torso, like not like really apparent, but I think even if you strip the black paint off of it, you would still see like a little bit of a line there. So I don't know if they'd be able to do a repaint at any point, but it might be something they might want to consider. So I would say, if you don't have the original Superpowers Green Lantern, this is probably one that's worth picking up, because, you know, it's Superpowers figures are getting more and more expensive on the aftermarket. You know, the supply is starting to dry up, and the demand is still there. So you know, it's going to be hard for you to get, like, even this. I was lucky to get this one. This was one that I basically got for free. So I know a lot of people probably hate me for saying that right now. But if you've got the original Superpowers Green Lantern, like, basically you already have a superior version of this. So I don't really know, unless you want to buy one maybe to keep on the card, or you're just a complete completionist that just has to have everything. I don't really see the point of getting the new figure if you already have the old one, which is just a better version. I'm sorry. I don't want to be too negative on Mcfarlane, but that having been said, I think it was worth them making it, because of course you want to have Hal Jordan represented in your DC line. He's an important enough of a character that, like, you got to have that Hal Jordan representation in there. You got to have a figure of him in your collection. Is it really a DC Comics action figure collection without Hal Jordan Green Lantern? Like, even if you've got John Stewart in there, like, for a lot of people, Hal Jordan's like their main guy as far as Green Lantern goes. And it's like, I think it's really more the younger generation that would have been kids when Justice League Unlimited came on. Those are really more your John Stewart fans, and really more like people my age tend to lean more towards Hal Jordan. Honestly, I don't really have that much of a preference towards them. I think they're both great characters. Like, I might slightly go more towards Hal because, like I said, that was my original Green Lantern. But I like John Stewart a lot too, and I was a big fan of Justice League Unlimited, and I thought he was awesome on that. Like, he was always a good character, but I think that the animated version really made him, like, that's really the ideal version of John Stewart. And you can even tell that with the Superpowers figure, because they chose to use that Justice League Unlimited kind of design with the high and tight and this particular uniform that Bruce Timm designed. I mean, that was the version that they decided to go with. Granted, this version has appeared in the mainstream comic books too, but that's where it came from. They didn't do a Neil Adams style John Stewart. They did a Bruce Timm style John Stewart. And likewise, like, I think for most people, it's this Bronze Age version of Hal Jordan that's kind of solidified in their heads. So, of course, they're going to want to do that one. And I've mentioned before, I think I even mentioned in this video, that honestly, I feel like Green Lantern was one of the best figures that was made in the original Superpowers line. And to me, it's kind of hard to imagine any Green Lantern figure being better than this one. I mean, like, even the DC Universe Classics version, it's basically just a taller, more articulated version of this. Like, they couldn't really do anything to improve upon this design. It's basically the same coloration. It's, just the taller and more articulated. That's it. So, what else is Mcfarlane going to do but try to do something that's pretty much exactly like that? Only, like, now the color doesn't quite match as well. I really think they should have gone with that more vibrant green. I think that would have looked better. As it is, this is still a really good figure. And like I said, if you don't have the original Superpowers Green Lantern, he's definitely worth picking up. Like, if you can get this guy for like $10 versus, like, I don't know how much I would reckon the original Superpowers Green Lantern is probably going for at least $25 to get a loose one with no accessories. that's just a ballpark guess. Like, from what I've been looking at with Superpowers figures on eBay lately, I'd go to about like the $25 limit, just seeing what I could find, and I don't remember seeing a Green Lantern. So, and he's a key character. People are going to want to have him. So if you can't find a Kenner Green Lantern that you can afford, this is definitely, I think, a worthy substitute. But if you can afford to get an original Kenner Green Lantern, I would definitely recommend it over this one. If you can only choose one and you can afford it, get the Kenner version. But, if you don't want to spend as much for the Kenner version, this one will do. This one will do. So I'm glad to have both, because I am a little bit of a completist as far as that goes. And I did want to have, even when I looked at it, I'm like, it pretty much looks like the one I already have. I still kind of wanted to have it. So, and they are coming out with Kilowog soon. So that'll give us at least 3 members for a Green Lantern Corps. And I believe that they have planned Guy Gardner. I think he was on the leaked list recently, if I remember correctly. So more good stuff coming. So anyway, that's pretty much it. I think it's about time for me to take a nap. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I thank you for watching. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you like and subscribe, all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this figure. Was it a waste of money for you to buy this when I already had the Kenner Green Lantern figure? I don't know. I like the figure. I'm glad I bought him anyway. So I guess that's what's really important, isn't it? Anyway, we will talk to you next time. Bye.